Something sinister hitches a ride into new worlds. Bodies dance even though they're already dead, and La Llorona finally finds her children. These are all stories told in verse in Mexicans on the Moon, a speculative poetry collection by Pedro Iniguez. These poems look to a possible future through sci-fi and horror with a uniquely Mexican perspective, so it got my attention. Of course, Mexican horror is there when you look for it, but a sci-fi future envisioned by a Mexican imagination? Let's hear it. After all, we're all heading to the future together, bringing the hopes, fears, and experiences of everybody on board. Before we get going though, I know you might see the title and wonder, will you get anything out of this if you're not Mexican? And yes, I think you can. Art is for everybody. It lets us empathize and relate to people that we might not think we have much in common with, but its beauty is far from skin deep. Now let's get started. Now, I'm a horror fan and this is a horror channel, so I'm going to focus on this collection's horror poems first. The first one appears at the end of the book's first section, Earth, and it's called Stowaway. It starts with humanity fleeing a dying world, taking off in spaceships, and something unnamed can feel itself losing its grip on their minds, becoming forgotten and fading away. But a young girl on board one of those ships is going to bed, and she's still scared. She recalls the terrors that had accosted her in the dark, the long fingers reaching for wiggling toes, hanging over the edge of the bed. She hasn't forgotten him, and when she mentions his name, it's permission to come aboard. El Cucuy. In the Spanish-speaking world, El Cucuy has many names. It's a child-eating monster, sort of like a boogeyman. It's something parents would tell their kids about to make them behave, and scare the living daylights out of them. So as humanity takes to the stars, El Cucuy hitches a ride in the fears of a little girl. Even in new worlds, fears and superstitions can still hold sway if you let them. Next is Lullabies of a Distant World. We find it in the second part of the book, titled Frontiers. We join a crew of interstellar explorers outside the wreckage of their life pods, so they must be stranded on a new world. At first, they can live off their rations as they listen to a strange song. All the plants of this planet seem to sing. Every blade of grass, every prickly weed thrummed rhythmically to the tunes of corpulent gourds, luminous berries, and the iridescent fruit hanging from the limbs of stalwart trees. It's beautiful, and the song of this world is soothing like a lullaby. But the rations run out, and these explorers still have to eat. And the tone of the song changes when they eat the plant life to survive. So this poem puts us in a desperate situation where you have to destroy something beautiful to live. So I can't blame them for trying to eat to live, even if it comes at a cost. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And we get a flash of Frankensteinian sci-fi horror in Cadaverous Cumbia. Here we're told of a certain microbe that dwells on an unknown planet. It feeds off organic material, let's say a corpse for example, and gives off electric impulses as a byproduct. And those jolts to the muscles cause the recently deceased to get up and move like they're dancing. And so those who bury their dead on this planet have embraced the phenomenon, and this final dance of death has become a treasured part of their burial customs. They take joy in watching them dance a final time, until they crumble into piles of rags and bones. Love it. This joyous acceptance of the inevitable is a reminder that someday death will come, but life is still worth celebrating. At least for me, it also evokes the art of Jose Guadalupe Posada, who depicted skeletons in satirical situations. His images have since become associated with Dia de los Muertos, a time of remembrance. And this work of science fiction contains a spark of science fact. There really are bacteria that create electricity. Maybe not enough to make the dead dance, at least not on Earth. You know, there is a poem in this collection called Dia de los Muertos, but it's not really a work of horror, and that's fine because the holiday itself is not really meant to be scary. It's more of a memorial occasion, an opportunity to remember your loved ones and celebrate all that they meant to you. And Iniguez's poem imagines that tradition taking place on distant planets, where marigolds match the color of a binary sunset. As the last poem from the Frontiers section, Dia de los Muertos takes the tradition far from the land where it began, but that's already happened. This tradition, rooted in pre-Columbian customs, has spread wherever Mexicans have made their homes. And while it wasn't always widely celebrated, even in Mexico, it's become a treasured symbol of Mexican heritage and connection to the past. If you've ever been to someone's home during the holiday or attended a public observance, you might have seen the altars made in memory of someone's loved ones. It might be decorated with objects from that person's life, their favorite foods, or photos. Those are called ofrendas, or offerings made to the people that we miss. But back to the horror. Next is Option 1, found in the book's third section, Futures. Humanity has found itself grasping for ways to clean up an ocean that's choked by ruin and waste before the waters become completely unsavable. And we have two options in these desperate times. Option 1 is to purge the source of all the toxins, us, but that seems a bit excessive. So we go for Option 2, create nanites nanites that can devour the toxins. And the nanites are good at their job, feeding on the plastics, metals, and waste that's permeated the sea. But then they come on land and discover that human beings are also loaded with those tasty toxins. And as the feast begins, option 2 circles back to option 1. It's a dark end, and it reminds me a bit of Ray Bradbury, the way our inventions just go about their tasks. They can't care about us, so we should take care while we can. While it's still dark, let's look at the future of labor with Scabs, a capitalist love story. It opens, plow the potter's field, uproot the nameless refugees, and watch them rebuild the world one brick at a time. A potter's field is a cemetery for unknown or impoverished people. The name goes all the way back to the New Testament when Judas betrayed Jesus for silver coins. Overwhelmed by guilt, Judas later ended his own life, and the priest who had paid him off used his silver to buy a potter's field. They decided that the place would be used for the burial of foreigners in the land. So to plow a potter's field is to dig up the dead, those buried there being displaced in life as well. But why make them live again? Observe as the laborious undead march like ants across the picket line and toil to build a utopia for all. They're zombies meant to fill in the labor when the human workers go on strike. No need for breaks, no need for fair pay. In labor terms, a scab is a strikebreaker who has crossed the picket line or gone to work when organized laborers have collectively decided to strike, usually to leverage the value of their work for better pay or conditions. It's complicated, but the first thing I thought of upon finishing this poem was not zombies. Many diligent workers right now are seeing their skills and labor undermined by the intrusion of AI. Like the zombies of this poem, AI yields a cheap result without all the needs of a regular human worker. If your brand of capitalism is profit above all else, even people, then who needs people? You've got yourself an empire of husks, no souls required. And this would not be the first time zombification has been used for slave labor. In real-world Hades, slave drivers used the threat of zombification to keep enslaved people from trying to escape. They were told that if they were caught, they would be turned into zombies and forced to work for eternity. When we look to the future, sometimes we get ugly reflections of the past. Okay, this speculative poetry book isn't all horror, not by a long shot. And like a solar eclipse, the darkness has a silver lining. There's plenty of speculation about the future and Mexicans on the moon, and a healthy dose of social commentary, doing what poetry so often does, holding up a mirror to the world before it. So now I'd like to explore the interstellar exploration, existential uncertainty, and other moments that stood out to me. Written in the second person, the payphone tells of a phone call that connects you to people who have already passed on. And so you call your grandparents, and your grandfather answers. His voice carries clearly from distances not measured by yardsticks or clocks. Then he passes to your grandmother, and the sound of her voice stirs up memories of her home, the scent of something nice and cozy cooking in the kitchen. And when the call is done, you exit the payphone, and there's a line of people stretching on as far as the eye can see. Missing your loved ones is a universal feeling, and even though some details may resonate specifically with Mexican readers, I think that this poem can warm anybody's heart. It feels like an ofrenda you can come back to when you need to remember something special about someone special. But often it's not just the people that we miss. Life can take us to new and far-off places for one reason or another. What once was home might have become inhospitable, or we might have to uproot in pursuit of a better life, chasing a dream. And so the title poem, Mexicans on the Moon, shows us how a new home is made. Everyone wanted Mars, but they make do with the moon. So already we had high ambitions, and we've had to settle for a reality that's somewhere short of that. But our pioneers get to work, carving canals into the lunar surface, which is described as masa, or the corn dough used to make tortillas and other staple foods. And the canals might be a callback to the agricultural waterways of ancient Mexico. But before long, the moon's new inhabitants are kicking up dust at weddings, while mariachi music rises to the stars. And the radiance of love warms that cold, dead rock until it is a home. Cooks make a dramatic entrance in terrestrial tacos, where a lunar buggy drops in from space, crashing down outside a mining site. Miners form a line for their lunch break while the halo-jumping taco truck crash lands. Then it opens for business, releasing the aromas of the kitchen, even though nobody can enjoy it because they're all wearing spacesuits. For the miners, the tacos are referred to as a plate of fleeting bliss, a momentary comfort in what must be a very strenuous job. Now you can see taco trucks parked just about anywhere work is being done. Job sites, office areas, anywhere. But I think a mine is an apt choice here. Whatever planet humans may reach in the future, you can bet that somebody will want to extract any resources it might have, and there's a popular theory that the taco got its name from a piece of mining equipment. Miners would create explosive charges by wrapping gunpowder in paper. Somebody must have noticed that the explosive resembled a common way people wrap tortillas, and the name must have stuck. Maybe. A lot of science fiction is set in a post-apocalypse, following some world-ending disaster. The humans that survive must cobble together a new life in the ruins. Sometimes there's an ecological disaster, but in many of these sci-fi stories, the world ends with the split of an atom, and Iniguez contemplates this possibility in the book's final section, Aftermath. This collection has several poems that take place in the post-apocalypse, and some even show us the moment that the world ends in a flash. They make it personal, zooming in on a single life like in Last Act of a Doomed Man, even though it's one of many that would be snuffed out in that terrible moment. It's a dark depiction of the future, but one I think that we can avoid. Art that lets us address this sort of fear now can hopefully move us to avoid ever going down a path that would lead there. But even if we reach a happier future, we have to make responsible choices to keep it that way. In Forever Elusive, humanity is sailing through the stars on a generation ship. That's an Ark-like spaceship destined to populate a distant world. The voyage will take so long that the original crew won't live long enough to see the end, so generation after generation is born and raised aboard, and this ship has been sailing on sunbeams for millennia. Home, forever elusive, out of grasp, awaited discovery in a future yet to arrive. But one day, they find a planet suitable for life, and news of plants and oceans have the crew delighted. Their search is over, but when they land, they find that the planet is already inhabited, and there's already an intelligent species working the land. And so the passengers, themselves the descendants of refugees, start to have second thoughts. They recall old lessons of colonizers wiping bloody boots on welcome mats made of goodwill and fertile soil. So they pack up and lift off, and the search continues. We've already seen how quickly discovery can lead to exploitation, setting up mines in new worlds. And the passengers of this generation ship are also aware of human history before their voyage, as the poem alludes to the colonial period in Mexico. When reading about the conquest in school, I often wondered if things could have been different, if the Spanish explorers could have cohabited with the indigenous Mexicans. But that's not what the conquistadors were there for, and so it sounds like these future explorers would rather not interfere with a world that was already turning without them. Between the indigenous Mexicans who faced conquest centuries ago and the space explorers of the future, what does this book have to say about the Mexican folks who are alive today? What about our hopes and dreams and the reality of our modern experience? Well, no culture is a monolith, and we all have our own individual ambitions. And sometimes an outside voice, somebody who does not know you, might tell you to set your sights lower. Again, everybody's experience is different, but sooner or later you might hear those discouraging words. So I want to show you one more poem to keep that in perspective. In 2 Quarters for a Rocket Ride, a child spends a little change on one of those coin-operated rockets you see outside the grocery store. And as he takes off, we get some beautiful imagery about the glory of space. But then unwelcome thoughts interrupt his adventure. He hears his classmates and neighbors telling him that's not where he belongs, that his heritage is all blood, savages, and cruelty. But he knows better. But he remembered that his people also grew maize the color of the rainbow and built intricate cities and canals atop vast blue lakes. His people were walking contradictions and miracles. And then his ride came to a stop, but he knew that that was not really the end. So I wanted to share my thoughts on this collection even if it's already been out a while and received its flowers. That includes a Bram Stoker Award for superior achievement in poetry, and I would say that that's well deserved. So now that you've heard my impression, I hope you'll pick up a copy and enjoy it for yourself. And remember, there's more where that came from. Iniguez just released a new collection this spring, the Build a Monster Workshop, and this one is all horror. I'll be checking that out soon, and I hope you do too. Now, a book of sci-fi poetry is a little bit outside my normal range for this channel, but if you enjoy the horror aspects, then you'll be right at home here. I have more reviews planned soon, plus something special just for the summer. I even have some of my own horror fiction publishing soon, so when that's out, I'll be sure to share the details. So stick around. Bye for now.